A time will come when all will believe. Geronda. How does it happen that people with faith end up becoming atheists? On this subject, there may be two possible cases. In one case, a person can be very faithful, with the power of God active in his life and obvious in many events. But then this same person becomes confused on the subject of faith. This happens, for example, when someone undertakes the ascetic life with egoism, approaching the spiritual life in an indiscriminate and selfish manner. He says, for example, "Whatever Saint so-and-so did, I will also do." And his spiritual exercises are indiscriminate. Gradually, however, without realizing it, he comes under the illusion that even if he hasn't yet reached the stature of Saint so-and-so, he must be close. So he continues his spiritual exercises, but while divine grace assisted him before he had this thought, now it begins to abandon him. For what does the grace of God have to do with pride? Consequently, he can no longer do the ascetic work as he did before, and he now has to exert himself. This exertion leads to anxiety. Pride follows suit with its accompanying turmoil, creating confusion. And whereas before he had done so much and divine grace was active with spiritual events, he slowly begins to have thoughts of disbelief and to doubt the existence of God. The second case is when an illiterate person decides to concern himself with the doctrines of the faith. Well, he just isn't well. It's one thing to take a look at the doctrines and become somewhat familiar with them, but even a well-educated person, if he approaches the doctrines with pride, will be deprived of divine grace and begin to have doubts. Of course, I'm not referring to someone who is devout. Even if uneducated, he can take a discreet look at the doctrines of faith, to the extent of his ability, and come to understand them quite well. But if an unspiritual person starts concerning himself with the doctrinal aspects of the faith, he, even though he may have believed a little before, will now not believe at all. Geronda. Unbelief has spread widely in our time. Yes, but often you can see even among those who say they don't believe in God that there is still a little hidden faith in them. Once a young man told me, "I don't believe there is a God." "Come a little closer," I told him. "Do you hear that nightingale singing? Who gave that beautiful gift to that bird?" At once the poor young man was moved, and the harshness of unbelief went away, and the appearance of his young face was altered. Another time 2 visitors had come to my gallery. They were about 45 years old and lived a very worldly life. As we monks say, because this life is vain, we reject everything. They too, but from the opposite point of view, said, "There is no other life," and while still young, abandoned their studies and began to live a completely worldly life. They had reached the point of becoming spiritual and physical wrecks. The father of one died from worrying about him. The other squandered his mother's property and made her suffer from a heart condition. After our conversation, they saw things differently. "We have become useless," they admitted. I gave one an icon for his mother. I went to give the other an icon, but he wouldn't accept it. "Give me one of those little boards you are sewing," he said. "I don't believe in God, I believe in the saints." Then I told him, "Whether it's a mirror or a cover from a tin can, unless the rays of the sun fall upon it, it won't shine. The saints were enlightened by the rays of the grace of God, just as the stars receive light from the sun. Those poor young people today are so confused over the various theories they are taught. I had once observed a Reykjavik tour Marxist about 50 years old who joined the groups of young people in order to confuse them with their theories. Marxists do not believe, so when you try to prove to them the existence of God, they condemn God and ask endless questions. Why this and why that, and so forth. The prophet Isaiah says that those who do not want to be saved do not understand. Once I told him, "Do you see the stars? They are not bolted up there. Someone is holding them up in the heavens." Everything the prophet said about Christ was fulfilled. We have so many martyrs who were formerly unbelievers, executioners, pagans, and then believed in Christ and became his witnesses. Some had their tongues severed so they would not speak of Christ, and without a tongue they became more eloquent witnesses to Christ. Every day we have so many saints who are celebrated. The saints are a living presence, and even when we don't find them, they find us. Many desert ascetics who don't have a calendar and don't know which saint is to be celebrated on a given day will say, "Saints of this day, intercede for us." And these saints will appear to them and reveal their names, which are sometimes difficult and unfamiliar names. Later the ascetics will look at a calendar and notice that on such and such a date, the saints who appeared to them were celebrated. What do you think of that? Then the Marxist again responded by asking, "Why do saints go to the monks and not to the people who need them? How did you come here?" I asked them. "By plane?" "No, by car," they replied. "Good. On the way here, how many roadside shrines did you see?" They didn't just sprout from the ground with the spring rains. People were helped by the saints, and out of devotion, he built those shrines and now light the lamps to honor the saints. The more spiritual people get rid of material things, the more they rise towards heaven. Materialists also enjoy something. They make, for example, so many cups. They make so much money. And if they make more cups, they earn more money. But you make your propaganda only and stop there. You have nothing to enjoy. You're the most unfortunate of all, because should you achieve what you want, you will have no other ideal but a torment of a Marxist slavery. Finally, they complimented me. "Father, you are a very good man, righteous, wise." In any case, whether people want it or not, a time will come when everyone will believe, because they will reach an impasse and Christ will intervene.